Lucilla felt the older woman's careful examination, but refused to let this touch that innermost sense of purpose upon which every Reverend Mother could rely in times of stress. Here, let her look fully upon me. Lucilla turned and set her mouth in a soft smile, passing her gaze across the rooftop opposite them. A uniformed man, armed with a heavy-duty las gun, appeared there, looked down at the two Reverend Mothers, and then focused on the child below them. "Who is that?" Lucilla asked. "Patron, the Bashar's most trusted side. Says he's only the Bashar's Batman, but you'd have to be blind and a fool to believe that." Lucilla examined the man across from them with care. So that was Patron. A native of Gamu, Taraza had said, chosen for this task by the Bashar himself. Thin and blonde, much too old now to be soldiering, but then the Bashar had been called back from retirement and had insisted Patron must share this duty. Xuanyu noted the way Lucilla shifted her attention from Patron to the gola with real concern. Yes, if the Bashar had been called back to guard this keep, then the gola was in extreme peril. Lucilla started in sudden surprise. "Why, he's—" "Miles takes orders," Xuanyu said, naming the Bashar. "All of the gola's play is training play. Muscles are to be prepared for the day when he is restored to his original self." "But that's no simple exercise he's doing down there," Lucilla said. She felt her own muscles respond sympathetically to the remembered training. "We hold back only the Sisterhood's arcana from this gola," Xuanyu said. "Almost anything else is in our storehouse of knowledge, can be his." Her tone had said she found this extremely objectionable. "Surely no one believes this gola could become another Kwisatz Haderach," Lucilla objected. Xuanyu merely shrugged. Lucilla held herself quite still, thinking. Was it possible the gola could be transformed into a male version of a Reverend Mother? Could this Duncan Idaho learn to look inward where no Reverend Mother dared? Xuanyu began to speak, her voice almost a growling mutter. "The design of this project. They have a dangerous plan. They could make the same mistake." She broke off. "They," Lucilla thought. "Their gola." "I would give a pretty to know for sure the position of Ix and the fish speakers in this," Lucilla said. "Fish speakers!" Xuanyu shook her head at the very thought of the remnant female army that had once served only the tyrant. "They believe in truth and justice." Lucilla overcame a sudden tightness in her throat. Xuanyu had all but declared open opposition. Yet she commanded here. The political rule was a simple one. Those who opposed the project must monitor it, that they might abort it at the first sign of trouble. But that was a genuine Duncan Idaho gola down there on the lawn. Cell comparisons and truth-sayers had confirmed it. Taraza had said, "You are to teach him love in all its forms." "He's so young," Lucilla said, keeping her attention on the gola. "Young, yes," Xuanyu said. "So for now, I presume you will awaken his childish responses to maternal affection. Later," Xuanyu shrugged. Lucilla betrayed no emotional reaction. A Bene Gesserit obeyed. "I am an imprinter. So, Taraza's orders and the imprinter's specialized in training defined a particular course of events. To Xuanyu, Lucilla said, "There is something who looks like me and speaks with my voice. I am imprinting for her. May I ask who that is?" "No." Lucilla had held her silence. She had not expected revelation, but it had been remarked more than once that she bore a striking resemblance to senior security mother Darwi Odrade. A young Odrade. Lucilla had heard this on several occasions. Both Lucilla and Odrade were, of course, in the Atreides line, with a strong backbreeding from Siona descendants. The fish speakers had no monopoly on those genes. But the other memories of a Reverend Mother, even with their linear selectivity and confinement to the female side, provided important clues to the broad shape of the Gola project. Lucilla, who had come to depend on her experiences of the Jessica persona buried some 5,000 years back in the Sisterhood's genetic manipulations, felt a deep sense of dread from that source now. There was a familiar pattern here. It gave off such an intense feeling of doom that Lucilla fell automatically into the litany against fear, as she had been taught it in her first introduction to the Sisterhood's rites. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it is gone, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Calm returned to Lucilla. Xuang Yu, sensing some of this, allowed her guard to drop slightly. Lucilla was no dullard, no special Reverend Mother with an empty title and barely sufficient background to function without embarrassing the sisterhood. Lucilla was the real thing, and some reactions could not be hidden from her, not even reactions of another Reverend Mother. Very well, let her know the full extent of the opposition to this foolish, this dangerous project. I do not think that Gola will survive to see Rackus, Xuang Yu said. Lucilla let this pass. Tell me about his friends, she said. He has no friends, only teachers. When will I meet them? She kept her gaze on the opposite parapet, where Patron leaned idly against a low pillar, his heavy lasgun at the ready. Lucilla realized with an abrupt shock that Patron was watching her. Patron was a message from the bashar. Xuang Yu obviously saw and understood. We guard him. I presume it's Miles Tagg you're so anxious to meet, Xuang Yu said, among others. Don't you want to make contact with the Gola first? I've already made contact with him. Lucilla nodded towards the enclosed yard, where the child once more stood motionless and looking up at her. He's a thoughtful one. I've only the reports on the others, Xuang Yu said, but I suspect this is the most thoughtful one of the series. Lucilla suppressed an involuntary shudder at the readiness for violent opposition in Xuang Yu's words and attitude. There was not one hint that the child below them shared a common humanity. While Lucilla was thinking this, clouds covered the sun, as they often did here at this hour. A cold wind blew in over the keep's walls, swirling around the courtyard. The child turned away and picked up the speed of his activities, getting his warmth from increased activity. Where does he go to be alone? Lucilla asked. Mostly to his room. He has tried a few dangerous escapades, but we have discouraged this. He must hate us very much. I'm sure of it. I will have to deal with that directly. Surely an imprinter has no doubts about her ability to overcome hate. I was thinking of Geasa. Lucilla sent a knowing look at Xuang Yu. I find it astonishing that you let Geasa make such a mistake. I don't interfere with the normal progress of the Gola's instructions. If one of his teachers develops a real affection for him, that is not my problem. An attractive child, Lucilla said. They stood a bit longer watching the Duncan, Idaho Gola at his training play. Both Reverend Mothers thought briefly of Geasa, one of the first teachers brought here for the Gola project. Xuang Yu's attitude was plain. Geasa was a providential failure. Lucilla thought only, Xuang Yu and Geasa complicate my task. Neither woman gave it even a passing moment to the way these thoughts reaffirmed their loyalties. As she watched the child in the courtyard, Lucilla began to have a new appreciation of what the tyrant god emperor had actually achieved. Leto II had employed his gola type through uncounted lifetimes, some 3,500 years of them, one after another. And the god emperor Leto II had been no ordinary force of nature. He had been the biggest juggernaut in human history, rolling over everything, over social systems, over natural and unnatural hatreds, over governmental forms, over rituals, both taboo and mandatory, over religions casual and religions intense. The crushing weight of the tyrant's passage had left nothing unmarked, not even the Bene Gesserit. Leto II had called it the Golden Path, and this Duncan Idaho-type gola below her had now figured prominently into that awesome passage. Lucilla had studied the Bene Gesserit accounts, probably the best in the universe. Even today, on most of the old imperial planets, newly married couples still scattered dollops of water east and west, mouthing the local version of "Let thy blessings flow back to us from this offering, O God of infinite power and infinite mercy." Once it had been the task of fish speakers and their tame priesthood to enforce such obedience, but the thing had developed its own momentum, becoming a pervasive compulsion. Even the most doubting of believers said, well, it can do no harm. It was an accomplishment that the finest religious engineers of the Bene Gesserit Missionaria Protectiva admired with frustrated awe. The tyrant had surpassed the Bene Gesserit best. And 1,500 years since the tyrant's death, the sisterhood remained powerless to unlock the central knot of that fearsome accomplishment. "Who has charge of the child's religious training?" Lucilla asked. "No one," Xuanyu said. "Why bother? If he is reawakened to his original memories, he will have his own ideas. We will deal with those if we ever have to." The child below them completed his allotted training time. Without another look up at the watchers on the parapet, he left the enclosed yard and entered a wide doorway to the left. Patron, too, abandoned his guard position without glancing at the two Reverend Mothers. "Don't be fooled by Teg's people," Xuanyu said. "They have eyes in the back of their heads. Teg's birth mother, you know, was one of us. He is teaching that gola things better never shared."